That scene is just so funny. Anyway, a very special moment for us now as we welcome John Cleese to the hot seat.
Our studio audience that he used to be a teacher and to be very nervous when they ask their questions. So we're going to go like this. We're going to go straight to the phones and we're going to go to line 4. Who's on line 4?
Jonathan Gallagher.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hi,
You're through to John. What's your question?
What was it like to work with animals, and was it hard or easy?
The trick is you've got to find out exactly what the animal can do. And we had a couple of people, Rona Brown and Jim Clubb, on the movie who just know everything about animals. So while we were writing it, we would say, could the animal do this? And they would say, well, if you want the little lemur to pick up a gun, that'll take about 5 or 6 weeks. So we'd say, all right, start training them. But if you're sensible about it, it's not difficult. For there's a little scene in the movie when I'm kind of thinking about where I am in my life, and those scenes are difficult in movies, because who do you talk to when you're having a private moment? Well, of course, I was able to talk to the little lemur. And he was happy to sit there, provided I gave him the raisins. And of course, when he'd had enough raisins, then he went off and his brother came in, who looks exactly the same, and I went on feeding him. So it wasn't difficult.
Thanks very much for your question.
Thanks for your call there, Jonathan.
Jessica, sorry.
I was going to say this is Fierce Creatures. Anyone who's wondering the film we're talking about.
Yeah, good film.
Sorry.
Jessica, what's your question for John?
The film Fierce Creatures was set in a zoo. How do you feel about zoos?
I think it entirely depends what sort of zoos they are, you know? I mean, when I grew up as a kid, they were all those horrible prisons, you know, with concrete and iron, and it was just awful. Except, when I was about 11, I went to Whipsnade for the first time, and it was the first time I'd seen animals in a kind of natural setting, you know, great paddocks with lots of space. And that's, I think, when I just fell in love with wildlife. And so many of the zoos now are changing. Of course, they don't have the money to change immediately and suddenly to become wonderful, but all the ones that I know are changing, and some of them started out right. Now, the ones I know really well are Marwell down near Winchester in Hampshire, which is a terrific zoo. We shot some of the movie there. And also Jerry Durrell's zoo on the island of Jersey, which is extraordinary. They value, both these zoos, Marwell and Jersey, value their livestock, all these animals, at £1 for the lot. Because the intention is, they hope one day to return them to the wild. And Jerry Durrell was the first person to realize the direction that zoos have got to go in the late 50s, before any of the other zoos. He says we have to have an ark, because so many of these animals are having their natural habitat destroyed. We have to have somewhere to keep them safe before we can put them back in the wild. And Jersey now do an enormous amount of work in the different countries to make sure that when the animals are returned, it's safe for them.
There we go, see, doing some good work. We're going to go to line 1 now. Who's on line 1?
Beth Charleston from Cheltenham.
Hello, Beth. You're through to John. What's your question?
Good morning, John. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. I'm old, but I'm fine.
You're not that old.
I'm 57, that's all.
When you were in Cambridge Footlights, did you ever expect to hit superstardom and sex symbolism, and how did you know when it happened?
No, the odd thing was, and this is absolutely true, I realized early on that I wasn't very special. I mean, the first show I ever did in the Footlights, I thought I was rather good. And I went out and I bought the Cambridge paper after the opening night, and they went on about this guy called Graham Chapman, how brilliant he was. And my name was at the end along with everyone else. And then the next year, when we came into London with the show, Bill Oddie got most of the reviews. He got about 70% of them. Tim Brooke Taylor got about another 20% of them. And then David Hatch and I picked up about 10% of good mention. And I just accepted there was, you know, that I wasn't special. And then something odd happened. About 4 years later, when I started appearing on television with David Frost for the first time, this is 1966, just before when most of your parents were born, I suddenly realized that something had happened, that some people were suddenly talking about me. And it was something to do with the camera being closer and picking up more of my face.
That's all it was.
Yeah, and after all, when I was at Cambridge, I was all signed up to be a solicitor, so...
There you go. And Beth, I spoke to you earlier on the phone, and you said you quite liked him.
Yeah, could I have his autograph, please?
I'm sure we can arrange that for you, Beth.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your call.
Thanks very much,
Big
Beth.
fan in Beth you've got there, John.
Oliver, what's your question for John?
Would you like to be a Hollywood action hero like Sylvester Stallone?
You mean if I was young enough? Well, I tell you, the real problem is that filming is unbelievably boring. Now, you don't realize this because you come on a film set once and, you know, and there's so much going on that first day, you can't believe it. And as my friend William Goldman, the screenwriter, says, the first day on a film set is one of the most exciting days in your life. Unfortunately, the second day is one of the dullest. And people start saying, what's happened? Why aren't you shooting? And you say, well, they're having to move that light round there, and there's a reflection off there, and also somebody's using a circular saw in that block of flats. It's so slow and so repetitive because you do the master shot, the wide shot in the first hour, and that's fun because you're trying to get the acting right. And then for the rest of the day they're doing close-ups and you're doing exactly the same thing. As you know, you've got to do it exactly the same, else it won't edit together. And it's very dull. And it's the only good thing about acting is it's so well paid. It has to be, otherwise nobody would do it. It's so dull.
Excellent. Good question, then. You fancy being an action hero yourself?
Yeah.
You've got the shoulders for it, I think. We're going to go back to the phones and line 2. Straight to line 2. Who's on line 2?
Stefan Ritchie from Reading.
Hello, what's your question, Stefan?
Hi, what sort of school reports did you get when you went to school? If you can remember.
My favourite report
If you can remember!
Oh, you bitch! My favourite report I had a history teacher called Mr. Whitmarsh, but he couldn't say his R's right. He used to call himself Mr. Whitmarsh. And the terrible thing was he'd landed the 17th century, so he was all on about the Reformation and the Restoration and the Roundheads. And he wrote on my history report, he indulges in subversive activities at the back of the room.
Excuse me.
I kept that quiet when I became a teacher.
Actually, you were a teacher yourself.
Yeah.
Good teacher?
I think I was quite good. I was quite entertaining, yeah.
So I can imagine. Thanks for your call there, Stefan.
All right, OK, well, I think we're running out of time.
Oh, have we?
Sadly, I think so. But thanks very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
All the best with Fierce Creatures. We'll all be going
Thank
out
you.
to see it. It's a PG, so you can all go and see it.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's a
very
PG.
much. John
Looking
Cleese.
forward to it.